Hey, what's up, guys? Just finished reading this MP Shiel's The Purple Cloud. Now, last year I went over his short story, The House of Sounds, which I liked a lot. And probably of the English writers, right? He was referred to kind of as a decadent writer back in the day. Even more than Arthur Machen, or I would even say Oscar Wilde, man. This guy's, the way he writes is more evocative of like the French decadence. Although you can also see that Poe, as with Mackin, Poe is really the main thing for them. But this guy writes like Huysmans, very florid, very lots of. Someone might say it's overwriting, but I kind of like that. The Lovecraft, the kind of florid style, I like that. Uh, it's made for people that are educated, right? It's not made for mass production. And what a bizarre novel. His stuff is very bizarre. Purple Cloud is essentially an apocalyptic story. It's what happens when the turn of the century. They have one of these North Pole expeditions. You know, the ones that frequently met with failure and everyone dying. Well, this was that time, and the protagonist in this, he ends up going on the expedition because his insane fiance poisons someone on the team so he can get on, which is figures into the plot at least in the beginning of it. But there's a portent of doom. There's a Scottish, I guess, holy, preacher saying that man was not meant to go to the North Pole. All the expeditions are there for a reason, and if you go to the North Pole, you're going to bring doom upon the earth. And essentially, well, that's what happens. This character, the rest of his teammates, they perish. And something strange happens. And because of where he is at the time, this purple cloud is released. He misses it. And he comes around, and essentially the rest of this 300-page novel is him wandering the world where everyone is dead. Right? And it's as fantastical as it is grim and a downer. And it's interesting the character, how he, as time goes on, he starts to dress almost like a sultan. It's kind of interesting reading it. Very politically incorrect, but such a lot of great writing. I'll show some of it. The ending is kind of hopeful. Originally, I think the title for this was going to be the second Adam or something like that, but it ended up being the Purple Cloud, right? The King in Yellow, right? All these actually he wrote a book about the Chinese dominating the Earth called, I think, the Yellow something Yellow, right? The Yellow Peril novel. But anyway, I'll read some of this stuff here. Alone that same day, I began my way southward, and for 5 days made good progress. On the 8th day, I noticed stretched right across the southeastern horizon a region of purple vapor, which luridly obscured the face of the sun. And day after day, I saw it steadily brooding there, but what could it be I did not understand? Well, that's the purple vapor that was released. It has a fragrance of peach blossom, okay, which is to say, like almonds, peach blossoms, cyanide. Them going up there, they never even really say if them going up there released it, but it's kind of interesting to imagine that they progressed somewhere where they shouldn't have, and God punished the world. Everywhere this guy goes, everyone is dead. It's just bodies, and some of the scenes are horrific because not all the people. I mean, a lot of people died of violence. You see how the vapor took its time going around the earth, and the people were fleeing. You have all kinds of, amazingly in England, you have all these foreigners escaping into England. So he finds many people from all over the world having invaded and clashed with the native English. It wasn't while I was lying there, poring upon the steamlet, that a thought came into my head. For I said to myself, if now I be here alone, 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 one on the earth, and my girth have a spread of 25,000 miles, what will happen to my mind? Into what kind of creature shall I writhe and change? I may live 2 years so. What will happen then? I may live 5 years, 10. What will happen after the 5, the 10? I may live 20, 30, 40. Already there are things that peep and sprout within me. Right? When the horror hits him, he's alone. He could live on and on, because even at this point, it's like 1900 or whatever, but there's still enough uh, infrastructure. There's enough steam cruisers. There's enough transportation. There's enough technology. There's enough stored food for him to survive for many decades. And it's interesting. Uh, Man, I mean, the talk about the horror of just being alone. Something that I probably would enjoy. I always joke about that, but this goes. Be careful what you wish for. It's a lot of this kind of stuff. From coming near the platforms, I saw the trains, in order to move at all, must have moved through a slew of bodies, pushed from behind and forming a packed, homogeneous mass on the metals. And I knew that they had moved. He's just seeing like thousands and thousands of bodies. Now he's in London. Nor could I now move unless I decided to wade, for flesh was everywhere, on the roofs of trains, cramming the interval between them, on the platforms, splashing the pillars like spray, piled on trucks and lorries, a carnal quagmire, and outside it filled the space between a great host of vehicles carpeting all that region of London, and all here that odor of blossoms, which nowhere yet save on one vile ship had failed, was now wholly overcome by another, and the thought was in my head, my God, that if the soul of man had sent up to heaven the odor which his body gave to me, then it was not so strange that things were as they were. I get out from the station with ears, God knows, that still awaited the accustomed noising of this accursed town. Habituated as I now was to all the dumb and absent void of soundlessness, and I was overwhelmed in a new awe, and lost in a wilder woesomeness. But instead of lights and business, I saw the long street which I knew brewed darker than Babylon's long desolate. And in place of its ancient noising, heard, my God, a shocking silence, rising higher than I had ever heard it, and blending with the silence of the inane, eternal stars in heaven. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Now, as the years go on, and he's traveling all over the world, he grows like a long beard. He becomes like almost like an Eastern. He starts dressing up like a sultan or something. Right? And he also does something very interesting too. He starts to commit arson and burn towns and cities. He burns London down. He burns all the cities that he goes through. Very, very interesting. Right? Here I would no longer contain myself, but burned, and that magnificent stretch of forest that lay between Agincourt and Abbeville, covering 5 square miles. I burned. In Abbeville I burned. In Amiens I burned. In 3 forests between Amiens and Paris I burned. In Paris I burned, burning and burning during 4 months, leaving behind me some smoking districts, a long tract of ravage, like some being of the pit that blights where pass his flaming wings. Oh. This city burning has now become a habit with me, more enchaining and infinitely more debased than ever was opium to the smoker or alcohol to the drunkard. I count it among the prime necessaries of my life. It is my brandy, my bacchanal, my secret Sid. I have burned Calcutta, Peking, and San Francisco. Oh, great. In spite of the restraining influence of this palace, I have burned and burned. I have burned 200 cities and countrysides. Like Leviathan disporting himself in the sea, so I have rioted in this earth. Oh, here's another cool scene. There's a lot. I mean, this is recommended. So, when he finds the woman that got him on the team, this murderess, right? And he finds her all these years later, right? Approaching Peter's house, I saw now what the darkness had hidden from me. That on his balcony was someone quite alone there. The balcony is a slight open-work, wrought iron structure, connected to a small roof by 3 slender voluted pillars, 2 at the ends, 1 in the middle, and at the middle one I saw someone, a woman, kneeling, her arms clasped tight about the pillar, and her face rather upward-looking. Never did I see aught more horrid. There were the gracious curves of the woman's bust and hips, still well preserved in a clinging dress of red cloth, very faded now, and her reddish hair floated loose in a large, flimsy cloud about her. But her face, in that exposed position, had been quite eaten away by the winds to a noseless skeleton, which grinned from ear to ear. And this is his fiancée, with slightly dropped underjaw, most hard in contrast with the body and frame of hair. I meditated upon her a long time that morning from the opposite pavement. An oval locket at her throat contained, I knew, my likeness. For 8 years previously I had given it her. It was Claude, the poisoner. I have no idea if that's how you pronounce it. Obviously, she's an Irish woman. As you read this, you're always like, okay, is this just him alone until he dies? Well, the ending of it, well, I'll just throw in that one of the original titles of this was like the second Adam. So you figure out what might be happening in the end. Now, this story was very, very loosely adapted. I think it was at The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. It was what, like, I think Harry Belafonte, where he's in a mine and he comes out and there's another woman and another guy, and the two guys fight over the woman. Yeah, you can imagine. Really garbage and maybe worse, subversive movie. Nothing like this. If they had filmed this, it would have been quite different. And I recommend this, the Purple Cloud, by MP Shiel. The guy was interesting. The guy had, there were some things about him that were very controversial. I just look at the writing in this case, and the guy is talented. I want to see his other books. There's one I read about subject matters that we can't cover. Very politically incorrect, but interesting. It was interesting to read that, and of course there's more explicit horror stuff that Lovecraft covers, which I will cover at some point. But yeah, recommended. The Purple Cloud. It's the end of the world.